is that a conversation you have around the dinner table? I mean, does he accept that it didn't work?
It's striking to me that when I began my career in investment banking at Morgan Stanley, my degree in ancient history and my master's in international relations were in no way useful to me for this job I was supposed to know how to do, and yet they were for some reason deemed a prerequisite. I mean, I learned everything about corporate debt and derivatives on the job, and yet I was hired because I had these arts degrees.
And would people have listened to you when, you know, you started, you're a founder, you've come with this big idea, if you hadn't been the Yale post-grad, if you hadn't had this string of sort of degrees under your belt, would they have taken you seriously?
I think so. I actually don't think, if you look at kind of entrepreneurs and founding a business, there's a lot more latitude there than if you're joining a company. Part of the problem is that we've sort of reached this place where the number of companies with degree requirements for entry-level jobs has exploded, despite the fact the vast majority of CEOs, and we've done plenty of research on this, say they don't think a degree is necessary to be successful in their business. And actually, most of them find that when they come to assessing talent, that is really neither here nor there in terms of who gets promoted, who gets advanced, everything else. But it has become a way of actually, people have used it as a sort of proxy for talent. Now, the problem with that is when you look at the intake of universities, so as an example, in the UK, only 4% of those claiming free school meals make it to Russell Group University. That's a massive barrier to social mobility. In the US, 70% of Black Americans and 80% of Hispanic Americans are screened out of the best jobs in the labor market through not having degrees. It's created this paper ceiling. And I think it's really because of lack of a robust alternative that people have been able to embrace instead, which is where I think apprenticeships come in.
So is it about the university model itself being broken? I mean, is it simply prohibitive costs? Certainly in the US, in most places. Here, tuition fees have gone up and up and up, and now you're taking on a massive amount of debt for your average student. Is it basically about the cost there?
It's part of the problem. So it's partly the cost, but the cost is also linked to the fact that universities have almost ended up having this monopoly on access to the best jobs. And whenever that happens, it creates very imperfect conditions for the consumer, because you've got essentially a sense that universities believed they were the only show in town. People had to go there to access the best jobs, so therefore they didn't need to modernize certain things. They didn't need to focus on skills employers really needed. And we're not anti-university. There is absolutely a place for academic exploration. There should be. There is a challenge, though. If you look at the US, 75% of those who leave high school will apply to college in America. Half of them, 6 years on, will still not have completed a degree, and the majority of those people will have dropped out, having accumulated huge amounts of debt. And actually, 10 years out, by the way, the majority will not have any income premium versus a high school diploma.
One of those who believed it was the only show in town was Tony Blair, your dad, who suggested in, 1999, that 50% of school leavers should aim for university places. Was he wrong?
The challenge you have is that it was assumed the more people that went to university, the more opportunity would be distributed across the country and in different communities, because it was seen at the time as a sort of silver bullet for social mobility. The reality is, due to issues around diversity and access, the fact that an academic-only education is always going to be inadequate, and yet it's what we do from the ages of 4 to 18, and the fact that the labour market is shifting rapidly and a whole host of new skills are needed. Universities often tell me they think in centuries and decades, which is great, but when you're looking at a labour market that is changing on a quarterly basis, or in some cases even a monthly basis, that's a major problem. So I think the idea was correct, which is how do you distribute opportunity more evenly? The fact is, it has transparently not worked.
And is that a conversation you have around the dinner table? I mean, does he accept that it didn't work, or does he think that you've got it wrong? Or
so it's very hard to argue with the fact that we haven't materially improved social mobility through trying to spread university more, and that there are these issues with access to jobs and skills. But he's massively supportive of apprenticeships. Actually, one of the great things about apprenticeships is they're quite a unifying force politically. You know, you'd find in the US, it's one of the few things that Republicans and Democrats both agree on. They're both pro-apprenticeships, they want more of them. In the UK, likewise, you speak to anyone in the opposition or anyone in government, they're all supportive of apprenticeships. So I think we have moved on from where we were 20 years ago.
The Newsagents. This is a Global Player original podcast.